Saturnastra, chapter 25. A mighty circle appeared at the crossroad, and its intricate patterns glowed blue in the darkness. The light grew brighter at the center, where two figures of light rose from the ground, and when the light faded away, Mildred and Brunhilde were visible. The pair wore animal pale robes, and Mildred's face was icy cold, and his eyes glassy and expressionless. Brunhilde had her arms folded and her lovely face twisted into a frown, and he saluted them as Mildred and his daughter approached the manor. And Grouse and Mordor saw Mildred has returned, and then he said to the nearest elf, informed Bersamin. The elf left the scene to carry out Grouse's command. Fortunately, the elf could not relay the message, since all of the pudgy dragons were conveniently out on errands, and the poor fellow was forced to stay in the birdhouse to wait for a messenger dragon to return. Mildred said to Ahi coldly, "You are naive, aren't you? Or stupid?" And he gave Mildred a sideways look before saying, "Maybe." Mildred shook his head in resignation, and Brunhilde simply bore her fangs, and she knew full well why the presence was required, and she had a special gift prepared for Eleanor. And when the last guest went inside, he was annoyed by Arasa, the goddess Death's unexpected appearance. Arasa was lurking the campgrounds, growing ever nearer to the house, and he bore his fangs at the god of death, and the god of death answered in the same fashion. Of course, only very few of the guests were able to see Arasa slithering about, and his presence added to the gloom and vibe field that no amount of celebration could dispel. And he was finally able to sit at the table with all of the guests, and Iago had arranged things in such a fashion that I knew each other would be sitting nearby. And the berserkers and the elves sat with their own kin, and Eleanor sat at Eleanor's right hand at the head of the table. And before he sat Marduk and beside him Karina, and on his left he had his brother Monkey King, and the man had placed both at the both of the baby dragons at the corner of the room within Eleanor's line of sight. And with this arrangement, Eleanor could gleefully contemplate all of her birthday guests, and the only two who did not follow the ideal plan were Mildred and Brunhilde. Mildred sat beside Karina, and he felt safe for putting as much distance himself between himself and the berserker who sat at the far end of the table. And as for Brunhilde, she chose to sit at the other end of the table. In doing so, she was going to be able to look at Eleanor square in the face, though very far away. Dinner was brought out, and the first course of food was freshly cut fruit harvested from the forest, and all the guests were fed either broth or salad. For dinner they ate a Sunday roast, and he had one time mentioned a Sunday roast dinner to Eleanor, and she decided she wanted to eat that for her birthday. And Saturnastra did have Sundays, in case you did not notice, and the roast consisted of roasted potatoes, roasted beef, lamb with assorted vegetable, and this came with gravy for meat, and there was also mustard for beef and mint for lamb meat. And there was also golden delicious butter pudding, and there was also plenty of peasant dog venison to go about. And the guests had a healthy choice in the meat that they wanted to devour. And the only people who abstained from eating meat were the elves, and the drinks consisted of wine, craft beer, and a drink provided by a hiccup bubbly. And he and his siblings and Brunhilde drank the bubbly, and the rest did not even dare to sip the mysterious substances. And during most of the dinner party, conversation was cordial, and from time to time, Grouse would excuse himself to go to the washroom, and instead of going to the washroom, he would go to the birdcage in search of a messenger dragon. And he could not fathom why all of the messenger dragons had conveniently disappeared that night. He had to report on Mildred's reappearance before the dragon had a chance to slip away from their grasp again, and Grouse dared not challenge Mildred directly. A confrontation with Ahi in the chest might cause too many casualties, and while eating, Brunhilde got up from her seat and she raised her bubbly in imitation of a toast. Eleanor frowned, trying to make sense of Brunhilde's hissing, and Marduk interjected by translating, "The girl is proposing a toast for the birthday girl." And Mildred chuckled when he heard this, and the berserkers too exchanged meaningful glances, and following Marduk's cue, arose to toast to Eleanor's well-being, and the jealous Brunhilde continued hissing and gnawing and snapping her teeth. Because don't forget Brunhilde be a little dragon girl. Brunhilde then drank her bubbly and then sat down before growling again, and the rest of them toasted to Eleanor. A toast to your good health and happiness, Eleanor. The feral giants who were nearest to Eleanor snapped their teeth at her, and in response she gave them a furious glare, which made them flinch, and her glare was enough to spoil the appetite of those unfortunate enough to be near her. And she was a frightening figure, all dressed in her delicate white Agora fur robes, and it was finely made that it almost seemed to have been crafted from the fur of one animal, and it was quite beautiful, simple winter white rose, and most of her grimaces were hidden behind her hood. And he was not blind to Brunhilda's great displeasure. However, he chose to ignore her unexpected animosity, and from time to time he would try to catch her gaze, and she, however, would return his friendly glances with an unladylike snarl. And it was only her father's presence which kept her from tearing Eleanor limb from limb. And Mother was also not having a good time. He feared that any moment Bersamin or Cannon would pop up, and Marduk's presence too was hardly reassuring. And whenever Mother seemed most tense, Marduk would say, "Relax, man, it's a party. Try to have a little fun." And Karina mostly spoke to Marduk in soft whispers, and they seemed to be scheming something or other. And when the dinner plates were taken away, Marduk kicked a heel under the leg table, and Monkey King too pitched at his elbow, and Karina smiled and moved her head in the direction of Eleanor. And he licked his lips and took in a deep breath, and before he said anything, he noticed Arasa flying in through the roof, and he gingerly landed right next to Eleanor. And the baby feral dragons rose from the ground with their mane standing on it, and their posture resembled an angry cat or a frightened cat fighting for its territory. And Brunhilda had taken a deep breath and was holding it in, and she was leaning forward on the table, half standing as if ready to leap forward at Eleanor, and taking more decision as he stood up in the same defiant pose as Eleanor, and his confident stand with his head held up proudly extinguished Brunhilda's desire for a slaughter. And the feral dragons relaxed, and Arasa departed Eleanor's side. And he said with a confident voice, and the thought he had been trying to put into words since the first time he met Eleanor. "Eleanor, marry me if you have nothing better to do." And he went to kneel before Eleanor, as was her custom, and took out a tiny little box, and he opened the box, and there was a ring inside of it. And the whole ring-giving thing is part of a marriage proposal was another anachronism akin to Bersamin's romantic gesture. And otherwise, as he spoke, Eleanor was blushing crimson red, and she was not expecting that he to propose to her, and he continued, "Eleanor, will you do me the honor of marrying me, if it's not too much trouble?" If girls had not been out of the berserkers to behave, the whole lot of them would have burst out laughing, and the elves simply watched this display with cool disdain. And they were simply counting the seconds for the night to end, and they had no concern for the happenings of the human world. And Marduk frowned when he heard he say this, and Monkey King chuckled and winked at Marduk, and Karina simply rested her head sleepily on her hands, and her black cloth fell over her face, hiding it from view. And the proposal meant she had a long night ahead of her, and she closed her eyes and started to meditate on his marriage contract. And Eleanor was far too dazed to make sense of what he was saying, and since she was at a loss for words, she started laughing nervously. And in order to make the awkward moment pass, Iago made a sign to the servant, and this one in turn brought out the cake and placed it before Eleanor. And the birthday cake was another one of his suggestions, and Eleanor blinked once and looked at the cake before smiling. And then he returned to his seat in a fury, and he put the ring away, and he rested his head on his hand in frustration. And Marduk gave a sinister smile, and Karina gave a sigh of relief, and Monkey King simply shook his head sadly. Mordred seemed a bit pensive, and he had realized why he was so insistent on having him there, and it made sense that his son would want moral support. His son. He only wished that he would have consulted him before making a fool of himself, and Marduk said to he with his mind, and the girl did not say no. She simply did not understand what you were asking. And he looked up and smiled at Marduk, and the rest of the night continued quite peacefully. And girls had finally given up on contacting Bersamin, and he was almost cordial with the Mordred who had deserted. Because don't forget, Mordred is a dragon that belongs to King Bersamin, that belongs to the king, and then one day the dragon went AWOL, and I'd be out of here, yo. The birthday cake was the true savior of the night, and the cake interior was made of vanilla and chocolate, and the icing was white, and the decoration was pink merengue, and they were shaped like flowers, 2 bears, and a pink ribbon, and it had 2 candles the shape of the number 17. And Anna blew out her candles and made her wish, and aside from the main cake, they could make several other cakes. and two were made of fruits, and one had the shape of a blue castle, and the other four were round decorated with edible flowers. And when the cakes were cut, the guests were allowed to wander about the manor and engage in cordial conversation, as was tradition. And then he went to the library to eat his piece, and then Emperor Hilda followed along, and the pair were getting along much better since his failed proposal. The main events were occurring in another room. Mulder, Marduk, Monkey King, Karina, and Yago were assembled in the study, and Monkey King was reclining on the couch, and Karina was sitting at the writing table with a contract. And Marduk and Yago sat in a cushion chair facing one another, and Mulder was the only one standing near the window, waiting as if afraid that something was going to come at him. And he was the first to break the silence. He said to Marduk, "How is it that you know a he?" Marduk smiled and said apologetically, "He's my brother," and Mulder's face turned even paler, and then he said, "How can it be so? You are human, and he's a dragon." "That is all on a need-to-know basis. Unfortunately for you, you are not a key player. Trust me, the least you know, the more peace of mind you have," responded Marduk. And I made enter the room to bring the guest in. Cause don't forget, like Marduk and he are like alderman people. Like they can be whatever they want to be, as long as but not increase like their strength level, you know. But like if they want to be, they can be mermaids. They want to be mermaids. They can be dragons. They want to be they can be elves, etc., etc. Because form that they display is not like their true form. They're like something else. Alright, back to the story. As I was rising from the depths of his subconsciousness, and he was almost ready to bloom when Marduk interrupted him. "Look, Mordred, I may have the body and soul of a human, but he really is my brother, and when I have the same blood, we may not have been created the same way, but he is still my baby brother." And Mordred's instinct may have dulled over the last 2 centuries, but he was no fool, and then he said, "Tell them, is he blood of my blood, flesh of my flesh?" Yes. As his father, you should know, and frankly, I do not know why you take my word so seriously, knowing full well my reputation among the berserkers," concluded Marduk evasively. And then he spit it out the tea before saying, "I forgot that I hate tea." That he hates drinking tea. He's more of a coffee person. Marduk, cause like technically since he was able to get some more like Mordred's DNA and stuff, he was able to become his kin, but technically since he's like a creative being, then he's not really his son, but you know, explain that to like somebody that doesn't understand fancy technology wise. Whatever. Mulder chuckled when he remembered who he was speaking to. Still the monkey, Marduk, and the demon girl among them, and he didn't know this as they had summoned them. And after thinking it through, Mulder convinced himself that he had befriended at some point or other, and his dull instinct still warned him that he was not getting the complete picture. And Marduk sighed in relief when Mulder decided to start pressing the issue, and the others were silent during the conversation, and Marduk then said to Iago, "In any case, I am here to negotiate the marriage contract. As per the rules of this contract, I will act on behalf of his interest with your permission, Mulder." Mulder nodded in response, and he had lost interest in the conversation, and he was trying once again to catch the train of thought that Marduk had interrupted. And Iago answered, "I am well familiar with the proceedings, and I have arranged and mediated the marriages of many of the villagers in yonder days." Looking at Karina, he asked, "Will she be drafting the contracts?" And Karina answered, "I handle this sort of thing in my little family. I had the preliminary drafts already done." And sneering, Iago asked, "May I look through them?" And Monkey got up and handed Karina's papers to Iago, and Iago was reading them over the top when he started laughing and smiling. He said, "Does he really own that much gold? Mungo, is that a real currency or a unit of measurement?" "Never mind the details," insisted Karina. "Just sign the papers below so we can finalize the contract." "I still have some questions. I mean, this can't be his real age," commented Iago, looking through another paper. "He wants a real wedding, not the pretend weddings we usually do. So I have to do everything by the book, and the documents abide by both your rules and ours," continued Karina. "Well, I will believe all of this ramble if he truly can afford Eleanor's bride price, and to be honest, her mother had no intention of having her daughter marry, and she always worried what would become of Eleanor in the hands of a normal man. commented Iago, sipping his tea, and Marduk looked sadder than usual, and then he said, how cruel having the girl live a lonely life when no one understands her just to keep her safe. A noble gesture, but a foolish one. Huh? And Marduk's speech was suddenly interrupted by Mordred's laughter, and at first he started chuckling, and then this laughter erupted, and he could not remember the last time he had laughed so hard. And finally warmth had penetrated his icy core, and when he was done laughing, Mordred took a deep breath, and then he exhaled. And Monkey King held his sides and asked, damn it, who turned off the heater? And Iago too commented, yes, it is rather cold. And Karina rested her head in her hands and said, just bear with it for now, and the fireplace is still aglow, and it should heat up since up in a few minutes. And Monkey King then said to Mordred, I see you finally figured it out, took you long enough, and Mordred then asked, what happens now? Marduk said, it all depends on you, and for now let us return to the matter at hand, and Iago just signed the papers already. And Iago folded his hand and showed some spine for a change, and then he said, I am not signing anything. I do not like this till death do us apart clause. It is madness. And Monkey King scratched his head, and he ate another one of his fleas, and then he said, you are not so naive as to suppose that Eleanor has the power to kill a he. And the fact is that all our marriages end with death. Either the bride kills the groom, or the groom kills the bride, or they suffer an accident or another, or illnesses. And divorces are rare, and we marry for life. It happens all the time. I know still, and why does the clause only make a reference to Eleanor's death? And just being realistic, Eleanor cannot kill, so I wrote a clause on the eventuality that she will suffer an accidental death. Monkey King opened his mouth to say something, however Marduk's disapproving glance made him remain silent. And after an hour's negotiation, the contracts were agreed upon, and all that remained was for he and Eleanor to sign it. And Iago had decided to waive the mandatory 2 years of courtship since Eleanor and he had grown up well together. He felt that it was no longer necessary. And Marduk said to Monkey King, go fetch your brother so we can finish this train wreck, and Karina give Iago the banknotes. And Monkey King left swiftly, and he lingered in front of the library door for a while, and he sensed that his brother was waiting for him, and he opened the door and he beckoned Monkey King to come with him. Eleanor was sleeping on the sofa, and Brunhilde was busying herself by sketching Eleanor sleeping, and upon closer inspection, Brunhilde had sketched Eleanor splattered all over the ground, as if she was a dead murder victim. A dragon's hindclaw was lying over her, and based on the previous observation, this is how Brunhilde had spent her time drawing random depictions of Eleanor's death. And aside from the two girls, the room had an unwelcome guest. Artsy was looming over Eleanor again, and he was quite interested in Brunhilde's little drawing. And Monkey King took he by the arm and drew him near to whisper, it is done, go with Marduk, and he will give you the mandatory birth and B speech. And Iago will then give her own debriefing, probably. As he entered the room, he said, before Marduk, and when he was sitting, Monkey King entered in the room. And Mordred had taken a seat to face both seemingly, and there was a queer smile painted on his lips, and from time to time his shoulders would rock due to his restrained laughter. And Iago was in another room waiting for Eleanor, and Marduk as he and the others are making a deal about nothing, and I have been obliged to ask you to describe you how babies are born. And his eyes went glassy for a moment, and then said, how human babies are born, or how we were created. Whichever you prefer, answered Marduk. Mordred sat back in his couch and rested his head on his hand, and a face smile was painted on his lip, and he then answered, this is how babies are born. You take a DNA sample from the mom and then one from the dad. You mix them together and then you get a baby. How the sample is acquired depends on the parents, and some of our kind is too afraid to become human to allow this process to occur the old-fashioned way. And there's always the eventuality that your partner was waiting for the chance to kill you. And others think maybe it is overrated experience. And Bode did not need to inquire about DNA. It was just another anachronistic concept that Bersamin has standardized in Beragado. And Bersamin, the researchers were always heavily invested in rudimentary DNA research in order to refine and multiply the monster stock. Another important issue to discuss is pleasure. These humans have a very limited stock of pleasure afforded to them, and this exercise in futility is one of their favorite activities. And how are you in regards to this problem? Asked Marduk, holding his chin while looking up, and he seemed very embarrassed to have this conversation with his little brother, and he could barely follow the strain of Marduk's roundabout way of asking his question, let alone understand what he was trying to tell him. And what are you talking about? This euphemism and metaphor are far too confusing. Just ask in plain in English, what would you do if Eleanor wants to sleep with you for the fun of it? Answered he after raising his hands in exasperation. And Mando's eyes were starting turning red with embarrassment. He was truly wanted this moment to end. And eventually he said, worst comes to worst, a fake memory will get the job done. I never thought about it, said Mildred, smiling. So he would just say, like, if you don't want to let sleep with the bride, just implant in her mind a memory of that you actually did it so that you just go on with your life, you know? This issue had never been a priority in our home. It would increase our number by either abductions or by creation, but alas, all these humans are far too obsessed with having children made of their flesh and blood of their blood, and the reason why they're so obsessed about it is far more insidious than you can imagine. And Marduk frowned at us before saying, stop shattering it, it's annoying us. And Mother gave Marduk a sideways look before saying, who are you talking to? And Karen assured her said, pay him no mind, he has a hard time ignoring the voices in his head. They are such teasers. I see, said Mother, taking stock on Marduk's fragile state of mind. And Marduk powdered his lip and folded his arm, and he took a deep breath and said, anyway, now that the hard part is out of the way, I want to ask you if you understand your duties as a husband. Yes, said he, when he actually truly meant no. And Marduk shook his head sadly, and he went to stand before his brother, and his eyes were a mirror image of Marduk's eternal melancholy. And then he said, this isn't a game, Ahi. We are on a very important mission. And Ahi looked at his feet and hung his head, deeply ashamed, and he deeply hated being scolded, and his eyes narrowed before saying, who are you to lecture me about forgetting my mission? I followed your instructions to the letter. And Marduk sat back down and said, that you have, and the conversation was interrupted when Monkey King entered the room. And Marduk saluted the brother and said, is it over already? And Monkey King snorted as he still gingerly closed the door behind him, and then he said to his brother, Yago had the maid explain this to Eleanor, and she understood just as much as he, and the humans worried far too much about such trivial matters. Marduk said to Ahi, my brother, just try to keep Eleanor safe. And he smiled and nodded. And Monkey King then said, I think Yago is more or less done with Eleanor, and go give her her engagement ring. I started leaving the room, and he suddenly stopped, and he turned around and looked at Mildred, and Mildred asked, when will you be having the wedding? Alright, that's the end of that chapter.